Well, North America is starting in less than. Well, it's California time, so it's 5 o'clock. So North America is starting in almost less than 24 hours. So I just want to point out really, really quick the region everybody made fun of, calling us trash and slow. We got second place at MSI. So as I always say, slow doesn't always mean bad, unless you're like Cloud9, TSM, and Team Liquid. Other than that, is bad. So before we're gonna start our power rankings, we got the team right who won last split. I got all of them right though. SKT, Team Liquid, G2.
You say didn't you? Oh yeah,
I got every single
I
one of
think
them
you
right.
said Griffin, right?
I said no. We shared SKT.
I said Griffin, and then I swapped. The only thing I got wrong was Fnatic.
Yeah, my first year I got every single one of them right. I was like, man, I'm a prediction god, right? No. Okay, so the NA power rankings, we're gonna differ on quite a bit of this stuff, actually. So, our top three is the same. They're just like swapped around a little bit. My top three is the same as everybody else's top three. So is his. And our bottom teams are kind of flipped around. You know, NA has the clump where it's just a bunch of bad teams. Now, theoretically, they could have all improved, you know, since the last split. I don't really think so. I think it's going to be like, I feel like a few games will be deceiving people into believing that these are better teams. When it comes to like week 5, these are going to be the exact same teams they were like last split. But this is a good thing because in like week 4 or 5, we're going to have Rift rivals. So let's hope these teams can give TSM, Cloud9, and Team TSM a run for their money before they go to Rift rivals and get utterly dominated by G2 and destroyed by Cavs.
TSM's going twice. It's crazy.
TSM going to Rift rivals? That's crazy.
Okay.
I mean, they're going to get destroyed by G2, but hey, it doesn't matter because I like G2 more, and I believe a samurai can destroy a bunch of letters because TSM doesn't have I don't know what they are. Bjergsen versus Caps. That's a big matchup. So let's start. Our 10th is the same. I'll let him start since I started at every single power ranking last time. So
I put last split. I put Clutch at 4th place, I think, which was obviously a mistake. I ended up putting him at 10th this time because I don't know what's going on with their roster right now. It looks like they're starting Piglet in mid and Cody Sun in bot, which is nothing. I mean, again, none of these things are going to be improving the team in the slightest. Their big problem, again, I think was mostly based off of Huni being in a pretty big underperforming season. I think that's going to be a problem for them. They're not going to fix that. If they're not going to fix that, if they don't somehow fix Huni's mechanics, this team's not going to succeed regardless. Lyra picked it up when he stopped playing around topside, so I think, again, I'd like him to be a little bit more fast-paced, but again, I think they could kind of work with what he's giving right now. Demonte played pretty well for the most of the part. I think that a lot of people like to overplay these mistakes people make, and then just, again, he did have a few games where he got caught out, or he was the one that lost them the game, but again, there was
that's like every so single far few in between.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, every single person on this team has a game where they just lost the team the game. I think a big problem with this team is going to be topside's underperformance. Mid lane, if Piglet is playing mid, I don't think this team can beat anybody. But again, he's good on Aurelia, but again, his laning mechanics aren't great. I'd like to see him not play mid. So Cody Sun is not an upgrade. I'm not too excited about that one. Vulcan is pretty average at best. He has a lot of good plays where he makes big plays around the map. For the most part, his lane makes a lot of just minuscule mistakes that can lead into a laning loss. Like, again, we saw against Flyquest and other people like that. Lyra is too slow paced right now again. I think that's going to be a problem for this team. And, again, I don't know what to say about Demonte because I don't think he's playing. At the very least, he's not playing for week 1, right?
I think he's going to play for week 1.
Is he playing for week 1?
I think so.
Okay, so I don't know what's going on. I heard that Piglet was going
Piglet is registered in there as a mid laner, in the database as a mid laner. Okay, so he could at some point come and play mid.
Well, again, I don't think that should happen. Demonte is obviously the better mid laner, so at the very least, I don't see anything going right with this team. They didn't fix any of their shot calling issues because they don't have a shot caller.
They still have Miss Greg, right? Is that the coach name? Miss Greg?
I don't remember what his name is, man. But again, I think the big problem with this team did not get fixed. I mean, there's so many holes in this team's game plan. They don't play fast-paced enough even when their team is based. Like, I was fine with them at the beginning of the year because even though I don't remember them having a solidified shot caller, their game is fast-paced enough to where them being able to win lanes was going to be able to get them a bunch of wins. But that's not the case because they're not winning lanes. So, all around, I think this team has the worst on-paper roster in the entirety of the region. I don't think there is anybody they can compete with unless something drastic happens this season split.
My thing with Clutch is, yeah, you might have made a side grade with Cody's son to Piglet, or some people have considered an upgrade. It really doesn't matter, honestly, because everywhere else, they just fall apart. The coach, I don't really think he understands the foundation of what the team is. And if you go to ADC, Piglet and Cody's son, I mean, even when Cody's son did go to be on stage with go to be upgraded to the main roster for the last majority of the week 8 and 9 he was there. Did he really show that much to be moved up past Piglet? I didn't think he showed more than what Piglet was showing anyway. I mean, Piglet wasn't showing me a lot, but Cody's son wasn't really showing me more. Like it's like when Cloud9 substituted out their main roster for their academy roster at the beginning of summer last year. Like, where that academy team really showing you more than what the other guys are showing? Not really. So
I mean,
that's...
Again, me and you already, if you've watched this channel before, you know my stance on Piglet. I do think he's a pretty good ADC. So I disagree with that statement that he showed that it's even a slight upgrade. But at the very least, even if it is somehow an upgrade, I don't think it's enough to make... Like, again...
Like, what term of an upgrade could Cody Sun be? It's like, is he more flexible? Because I don't see Cody Sun playing, like, the top laners or the main spot
flexibility is not a big problem in the bot lane. You just need an ADC. That's all you need to sustain.
Maybe he functions better with Vulcan, but even that alone, even if he does, like, it's still a weaker bot lane. Like,
I mean, again, Vulcan has played more with Piglet, so that can't be the case.
Yeah, I see that. That's the problem. Like, when people say it's an upgrade, is this really an upgrade, though? Because... Not only now are you taking away in-game build synergy, now you're putting a completely new person and someone else together, so that's supposed to just work magically. Like
again, the problem was that this was a large majority of their wins came off the back of both Piglet and Demonte. I think their swapping out was probably the strongest part of their roster at last split for somebody that's an unknown at this point. He didn't play well in the last last few games he played. So all around, this does not look like a smart move. It replaced the wrong part of the roster, in my opinion.
I think like Huni, I know he said on Travis's interview that the scrims are going really well, and Demonte said that too. That means that's a load of boo-hooey to me. Yeah, your scrims are going really well against like Flyquest. Yeah, that matters a lot, really.
It does. I mean, Flyquest is a playoff team right now. That would be a good thing to beat.
Like, their scrims are going well, but now you have to translate that on the stage, and let's see them, like, you saw their faces last split, like, Piglet, Vulcan, Demonte, and you saw all their faces. They were all frustrated. They're all, like, they gave up mentally inside when they were losing. Like, if they can show me that they don't give up mentally on stage and they actually play the game, there were, like, 4 or 5 games they could have won where they had, like, 10,000 gold leads, and then they just flopped. Whether that was Piglet, Huni, Lyra, it doesn't matter. They all still failed. Lyra... He played good toward like week 6 or 7 or something like that. It was too late at that point. They were already out of playoffs. And I don't feel like the team really did anything. I think it's just going to be like, yeah, they're probably not going to be exactly 10th, but I think their highest ceiling is 8th. And if they bring Piglet back to ADC, then they're going to be probably still 8th. Or potentially, if he stays mid, see, that's the thing though. I never thought he was a good mid laner. He does basic mid laner things that you just don't do. You don't stay pushing your wave constantly because you're going to get ganked.
I mean, I actually think his biggest problem is all he does is try and rotate. He doesn't stay in the lane long enough, which puts him behind in CS.
Yeah, we saw against that last Cloud9 game against our academy team, all he did was rotate, and he lost constantly. Like, should Piglet lose to Golden Glue?
Yes, Golden Glue's an actual mid laner.
Yeah.
And Golden Glue's a decent mid laner, so yeah. I think that is just without a doubt a yes.
And I think he has massive champion pool issues as being a mid laner. I've only really ever seen him play like 3 champions, like Ahri, Lissandra.
I mean, he hasn't had too many. He's played Ryze,
Ahri, and Lissandra, like all I've seen him play, really.
I mean, he's played a bit more, honestly. But again, he just hasn't been playing a lot.
And I kind of feel bad for him. Like, maybe because it only said he's starting for, like, Cody's son started for week 1. Maybe Piglet's in Korea visiting his family. You know, he visits his family a lot in Korea. Maybe he'll come back to the main roster. It doesn't really matter, though, because it's not really... Them being 2 ADCs doesn't really make the team better. Cody's son didn't show me anything more than what Piglet showed me. I think Cody's son's going to throw games as much as Piglet did. Piglet was on the 10,000 gold lead Kai'Sa? Well, what about Cody's son when he rocket forwarded, jumped into...
Kai'Sa didn't even have a gold lead that game you're talking about.
The game 8-1, right?
No, he was 1-1.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
He had 1 kill.
Or, like, people say, well, Piglet gets caught out. Well, Cody's son gets caught out too. His team sucks. His team is the suck. And they're both at 10th. Number 9 for him.
Nah, my number 9 is going to be Echo Fox. I mean, again, I don't think Echo Fox really has... Beyond Phoenix, I don't think anybody's playing substantially well. I think the bot lane's a lot worse than they were last split. Or last season. Last season, I think they were pretty solid middle of the pack to upper tier, like middle upper tier, like bot lane. But I think they did definitely regress from last split. I do not think again. I think they've went up in rankings yet. In terms of just NA bot lanes, yet still they're playing worse because I think there's a lot worse bot lanes in NA right now. I think the very top is solidified because they did substantially improve, but for the most part, a lot of the bot lanes in NA have drastically decreased in the lower half of the split, the standings. I think a big problem, again, I think Echo Fox's biggest problem, though I do, again, they have Phoenix who's been playing well against pretty much everybody in the league.
Yeah, Solo, he was a lot better than what I gave him credit for last split.
Well, again, Solo
most improved top laner in North America.
I would say just most improved player in general. I don't think anybody can really compete with that.
I had to debate with this guy for weeks about Solo improving.
He wasn't improving at that point. Again,
I said there were little glimpses of him doing well.
Okay, fine enough.
The Scion games, he's never.
It was literally that week. That was the week after the Scion games where he ulted backwards. That he was telling me this. No, that's not true.
I was like, I was trying to make some good argument there, and he was like, no.
Again, I think the biggest problem with Echo Fox, their game plan is usually pretty static. They try and function around a jungler who's going to be aggressive, but again, how often has Rush's aggression pulled off?
I think he was the worst jungler in the split.
He was, but again, I think at the very end of the split, they looked incredible.
But then you have to go to playoffs where he actually played garbage again.
Well, again, I think the biggest problem with that was just, first of all, the champions that they gave him. I think he doesn't function on the
Kindred? He played Kindred and Jarvan all series.
He was not good on Jarvan. That just wasn't the case. You kept giving him Jarvan, which we know for a fact that he's not good at, and consistently giving it to him. I think that was a problem with the coaching staff. But again,
then what about the Kindred where he missed Kindred ults?
Well, his Kindred was fine. Isn't that the game they won?
That was one of the games they won.
Yeah, that was the game on Kindred. He did fine. Again, he had a few misplays, but for the most part, he played the game in general pretty well. I think the J4 itself was pretty bad, though. We obviously saw after the first 2 games on it, he's not good on it. Even the first game, why do you keep doing it? It just doesn't make sense to me.
You have to give him an aggressive pick because if you give him a tank...
J4's not really aggressive. He's more... I mean, he is slightly aggressive in the early game, but again, he's not able to clear as well, so if he's trying to function, if he's trying to clear the jungle, he loses a lot of HP in comparison to the actual tank junglers or aggressive junglers.
I think, because... let's see, who's my 9th? Okay, so my 9th is different. I think when you look at Echo Fox, the reason why I had him lower too is because, I just don't really see them. I think they were good by. It's hard. It's really hard to go off of. They were 1 game into making it into playoffs, so that's already you're walking a fine line right there.
Yeah, but again, unless they drastically increased, which again I think half of them were playing at the ceiling that I think they can. I think Phoenix was playing at what I think he's capable of.
Solo played finally at some decent level.
Solo played above what I expected from him. I don't think he's gonna improve anymore, but if he does, that would be a pretty good thing for them. The bot lane again.
Apollo Hakuo's. We've seen him enough to kind of see what we're gonna get out of them at this point.
I don't think they were that good. I don't think they're that bad. They're middle of the pack bot lane, bot lane in general. I think the biggest problem again, inconsistent. They have a singular way they play the game. Essentially, they play I would think.
They play.
What's a similar team? They have a similar function as G2. Honestly. They try and rely on the mid strength of the mid lane and a pretty consistent strong top laner, which is again consistent.
SKT.
They're nothing like SKT.
No, because they rely on their jungler and their mid to get the game going.
Yeah, that's just insanely aggressive top laner. I think again, G2 is a little more.
Solo was trying to be aggressive.
He was not. Again, I think the biggest problem with they function like G2 with the players of Team Coast. That's just how I think of it. They don't have the players to pull off the playstyle G2 does, but
holy crap,
they try and get these early aggressive ganks in the jungle, which never work out. The mid laner's just not that incredible. Their top laner, which has drastically improved, is still not that good. So all around the map,
a little bit better than Dokla at this point.
I mean, he's quite a bit better.
Yeah, that's sad.
But again, there's not much going for this team beyond the minuscule things they've improved on. They have a pretty concise win condition in we get the mid lane going and keep the bot lane will pretty much go even with anybody, and that's pretty much all they do. They leave top on an island. The Rush will try and gank for either bot or mid, and if that doesn't work out, which it never does, he just dies and then they lose the game. That's how it works, and I think that is a little more. It's a little harder to expose at the beginning half of the season. But unless Rush's play has improved, which I don't know how it could have at this point, unless it's improved, he is gonna be the worst jungler in the league. And on top of the fact, I think that's gonna weigh his team down in the later half of the split, because I think a lot of these teams that Echo Fox were above did make good roster moves, where so was Echo Fox did not make any.
My number 9th pick is Optic. Now, the same thing he just said about Echo Fox, I think Optic didn't do a damn thing. Optic literally is the same roster, except they have 2 players. It's literally Crown and Meteos. And Dardoch if they want to switch them out. But they said Meteos is probably going to be the full-time starter for most of the split. It doesn't really matter, does it? Because half the team, literally 3/5 of the team is full of bad.
Can they just get rid of Dardoch at this point? Like, he needs to go to a good team.
Why can't Dardoch go to Cloud9? Come on, man.
That wouldn't be bad. I mean, honestly, any team could take either one of these junglers.
Now, if Dardoch had Cloud9, then maybe Cloud9 is pushing for first place at this point.
I think that would be a very good strategy. I mean, that would probably put them towards it.
That'd be like at least tied with Team Liquid. But the reason why I think Optic is going to be 9th is because first of all, they already finished 8th. So like finishing 9th is not that improbable. I'm just going to put that out there. Second, Dokla is the worst top laner in the league. He was worse than Darshan. I don't even know how that was possible. When we had Dokla above Darshan, actually. Then there's Arrow and Big. Big played better. I feel like people don't give Big enough credit because Big played a little bit better.
I mean, again, I think Big's big thing was he was the wing. Like, that they played around his shot calling and his playmaking.
He got him a few wins.
Well, he did. But again, he wasn't a great player, but he was a drive for this team.
But I don't. But the thing is that going to be consistent enough?
I mean, it was consistent last split. They just weren't good around the map to play against anybody
Arrow
else.
is washed up. I don't think he's that good anymore.
He wasn't bad though. That was probably quite a bit better than last season.
I felt like he was putting in effort, but I felt like he wasn't putting in enough effort. And then you just have Meteos and Crown. Crown was probably one of the more better mid laners in the split. They didn't really make that many roster moves. They're staying the same, just like Echo Fox is. And I just don't really see Optic doing anything more. I mean, Optic is already going to be out anyway, and they're going to have like Immortals coming in next split or something like that. So I think they're done. Most of the roster is done. The coaching staff is done. I think they're going to give it one last hurrah. Maybe they make it into the playoffs. Don't see it. They have the 2 best junglers in the league on one team still, and I'm still sad about that. But I do feel good for Crown, though. Crown improved a lot. Crown played good. I don't know why he's still on the team, though. Crown's in literally elo hell. So, yeah, Optic is my 9th place. They still have Zabutin as their coach. It doesn't matter. They're not going to be in the league next split. I don't think they're going to care. I mean, yeah, they care. They're going to put on a face that they care, but realistically, we know they don't. But I don't think most of the roster is washed up beside mid and top. They only are a mid and jungle focused team. Their macro sucks. Their early game lead sucks. Like, they had a couple of early game leads against like even Team Liquid and even Cloud9, but they got caught out of certain positions. Their communication hasn't probably gotten fixed. Oh my god, there's too many things. I'm gonna blow up my brain.
I'm gonna actually disagree with the macro. I think macro is probably one of their strongest suits. Again, a lot of their wins came off of early game aggressive plays from either Dardoch. If they played Dardoch, they'd make early aggressive plays around the map.
Yeah.
And then they try and switch that into a Big. Big was just a crazy shot caller. You just make crazy calls, but Big would make a call and they would try and go for these crazy plays, and that's how they function. Sometimes it wouldn't work out, but at the very least they did stuff.
I just don't think they've really shown a lot. Like,
I mean,
every other weaker roster upgraded while they just stayed the same.
Clutch Gaming,
I mean,
Echo Fox, Golden Guardians.
Oh, his 8th place is Golden Guardians, the team that made playoffs last split.
Again,
they went from 10th to playoffs, and now you're putting them back at 8th.
I'm putting them at 8th. Again, they didn't. I think that, again, there's a few teams that I put above them that did actually drastically improve. I think that they did actually halfway through the season, or no, right around that TSM game, remember? Right around there, they did actually figure out a way to play the game. They played around put a Haunter on a tank top, play around like a...
Give Froggen his mid lane carries back.
Just play around Froggen, honestly. I hope Contract doesn't kill himself too often.
Never give Contract's Lee Sin ever again.
Yeah, the bot lane again, they drastically decreased in play.
I mean, I never really thought Deathly was that good. I feel like he was good on a 10th place team.
He was good. If you watch the games, he honestly played out of his mind.
He played good. I'm not saying he didn't.
His positioning was great. His mechanics were honestly
but now
average.
This year he has the better team.
He has a better team, but again, most of the playstyle isn't revolving around him anymore, so he's not able to do these things he was able to last split. I agree that his plays drastically decreased, and that's just based off the fact that he's playing worse. It's not because the team's. I mean, again, how can he look better on a 10th place team?
You just can't.
You can't. The reason he is because, like, again, the team itself is no longer functioning as a way around him, and on top of the fact he's playing worse.
I think Ole is the single worst support in the league.
I don't know about that. I mean, there's JJ. There's a few other ones.
Oh no, JJ. He at certain points he looked better. That's
okay. Yeah.
Ole literally sat there in lane and did nothing. At least JJ attempted to make plays.
I'll agree.
Ole sat there. I swear there were some games he sat there as Alistar and did like no pulverizes, no headbutts. Like there was a game where he was playing Rakan. I don't think he ever like once dashed in properly. Like oh god, man, how do you go from almost MVP on Immortals to this?
You go into a team that doesn't help your like weak mentality, which is Team Liquid. I think that Double is a pretty polarizing player in terms of just pointing out flaws, which I think is if you want to be a competitor, you have to be able to accept those, which is something obviously I don't think Ole can do.
But he's had to split away from Double Lift now, so like him not improving on those things is his own problem now.
Well, I mean, again, that's a mentality thing at this point. It's just something that it crushed his mentality and has improved from it. And
but Golden Guardians still have an Arrow as a coach.
Well, yeah, I don't care about that though.
You don't think he's a strong coach at all?
No. Again, I think that
he's never liked an Arrow as a coach.
I haven't liked him or Ziggs. I mean, again, that's just this, right?
Yeah, I think he did make them better. I feel like he did make them better.
In what way? I mean, again, if you
he
look
gave
at
him a macro sense.
Well, look at an actual good coach, as in Cop and St. Vicious. Look what they did to a worse roster, in my opinion. They made it better. I think that he got a hold of a pretty solid roster and managed to make it barely out of playoffs. I'm barely in playoffs.
And they could have won the semifinals too.
What I'm saying is, they should have been in playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
This team should have been a guaranteed in playoffs because on paper this is a team that should succeed. But he wasn't able to fix the mentality of Ole. A lot of the picks weren't central. Like they were all at the beginning of the half of the split. They weren't centralized around mid lane, and they were putting him on weird picks, were meta picks instead of what Froggen's good at. Like he wasn't great. He's not a good coach. I don't think he's good. He didn't play to the strengths of the team until later on in the split. And then they just weren't able to make these like on top of the fact that the players weren't good enough to win the series. On that they also didn't have the picks. Like they didn't pick the proper teams to go against.
That game 5 against Flyquest, they gave Froggen Lissandra after he had been carrying on all the carry mid laners you've been giving him.
Also, yeah, it wasn't in the quarterfinals. I mean, I guess
quarterfinals. Sorry, if I said semi, sorry.
That's not a big deal. But again, in the quarterfinals, it's they made it there, but they obviously weren't good enough to compete with anybody else.
Like even if Golden Guardians do beat Flyquest in that series, they're gonna they would have still lost to Team Liquid no matter what.
I think a lot of like the strength of Golden Guardians is 100% mid lane right now. I feel like that's the only strength they have.
But we predicted that going in though. We knew it was gonna be the Froggen show.
We didn't know how good. No, we didn't. We didn't know how good Froggen was gonna be. Again, I thought it was definitely gonna be playing pretty consistently. Hanser did not look bad last split, and I thought he was gonna look a little bit decent. And then contracts, I don't know why they played him. I didn't have anything for that. But for the most part, underperformances in the bot lane, Hanser underperforming too, and getting the wrong picks. Stop putting him on carries. You know he's better on tanks. Like
when he got tanks, they started winning more.
Yeah, when they started putting him on tanks, they started winning more. That's just how he plays. So all around, like again, you should not be playing these players.
But why would you put a playoff team that was in playoffs in 8th place? Because that's a drastic decrease.
I think that again, I think you want me to. I can name off team. I think that 100 Thieves and CLG both increased in play. I think they're both better than they were last split. On top of the fact that I do think Optic Gaming, if they do have these same players, is the slightly better team. I think, in my opinion, the way they function, like their ability to be decisive around the map, is one thing that I will say counteracts Froggen's ability to play. If Froggen was on a better team, I think he deserves to be on a better Team Liquid.
Man, if Froggen was on 100 Thieves,
if he was on Team Liquid,
oh wow, God, man, he just wants to throw that Jensen shade at me.
Yeah, I do.
God,
I think that again, Cloud9 would look good with him too.
Yeah.
A Flyquest, no, maybe not.
Flyquest don't deserve him.
But 100 Thieves, like there's
Get rid of that soul of trash.
Like all of these teams would be so good. He's stuck here. I mean, again, Froggen is the player on this team, and that's always been the case since he's came to NA.
My 7th place, or my 8th, right? My 8th place team is Echo Fox. They're just not that good. I don't know what people are like. They had a superstar team the year before, and they completely downgraded in almost every single position this year, except for Phoenix, who's the same.
They made trades, and on top of it wasn't losing the player. They traded these players.
Yeah, they saw something in the other team's players that they wanted.
Well, to be fair,
They saw it in the worst players though.
Are they worse when they ranked higher than the teams they traded?
See, that's the problem. Look, Clutch was an 8th at one point too. Remember, Clutch still got 8th place. So Echo Fox, they saw something in each other's laners, and they're like, "Hey, let's swap." I don't. What? You know what you're gonna get out of Apollo and Haku at this point. You know this. I don't know what people think. Like, oh, they upset TSM. Whatever. Everybody can. Miracles happen in traditional sports at one point in period. The Rams lost to the Patriots, and the Rams are predicted to beat the Patriots. It's called an upset. It happens. Literally, if you go back and watch power rankings, the Patriots are ranked 5th, Rams are ranked 1st. That, to me, is called an upset. But, you know, nonetheless, players like them have that potential when no one's paying attention to them to pull off great capabilities like that. The thing with Echo Fox, I said last split, Rush was the single most overhyped jungler coming in. I'm fairly right about that because he didn't really look that great on KT roster. Not only that, he was playing around good players that could help him facilitate his playstyle. And you put him in North America where the players are weaker, so I didn't really think it was going to work out too much. Plus, I thought him as a player was drastically stayed stagnant since he left. Solo, he did improve throughout the split, which was fine. Phoenix played just about as good as I predicted. But Apollo and Hakuo, they're the problem with the team because they're always going to be what you expect out of them. They're nothing more. Echo Fox is a mid-jungle centric focused team, and the problem with being that is that they have probably the weakest mid-jungle duo in the league. Because we saw in the TSM series, they got blasted. They got destroyed. And
That's the strongest mid laner in the league, to be fair.
And a jungler who had never been in playoffs before.
Well, I don't think that matters. Acadian was obviously just the better jungler at that point.
Better jungler wins.
That's like the best jungle mid duo in the league.
It's like the team is just not like they have Song. I think Song should be a coach on this team. I don't know what he's trying to do. Maybe he's trying to prove that, oh, I can bring an underdog roster to the top of the league. It's not happening with these guys. Maybe if you were talking about like Golden Guardians or 100 Thieves, that's possibly different, but not these people. They're not that good. I've seen these guys for a very long time. We know what we're going to get at these guys. This is literally exactly where they should have been. The reason why I have them at 8th because they were in playoffs because they were one game away from not making playoffs. What kind of razor thin margin is that? If COG don't give Darshan that Nico pick, they're probably not in playoffs. So them being not in playoffs is not too improbable to actually think about. So that's why Echo Fox are my 8th place team. His 7th place is Optic.
I put Optic a little bit above the rest of them. Again, with the state of the meta right now, which I think is jungle centric, on top of the fact that I do think they have one of the stronger mid laners in NA. I think that might be enough to put them above a few of the other players. And on top of that, when they do get an early game lead, they're like a worse version of XL in my opinion.
Holy crap, that's so much better to be. That's what you have to aspire to. I should be aspired to be Yarnin.
Like again, they have a pretty great jungler. I think their mid lane is pretty good, and again, their support is not great in terms of mechanics or other stuff.
But he's better than those bottom supports, though.
And on top of the fact, he's a good shot caller. I think his shot calling is not terrible. The problem with this team is they have such weak players that they rarely get these leads against most of these teams, and it makes it difficult for them to be able to bounce back. I think that Optic Gaming does have the ability to be almost slightly out of playoffs team. I do think they have the ability to.
To be fair,
and these teams do actually function like these teams with better macro do function better in the second split in comparison to the first because like mechanics do start falling off a little bit harder. But Optic, I think they do like again. I think they have the players to be able to bounce back. I think they not the play they have the
capabilities.
They have the 2 players to be able to bounce back. The rest of them again, Dokula, he's not going to help anything. I think
what about Aloran? If they sub Alorna at some point,
Aloran didn't play much better.
I thought he might have been worse actually.
His one game, I don't think he played that bad, but it wasn't that was not. What's it called?
It's not an upgrade.
It's not an upgrade, but it is not a downgrade either. I think that Aloran would be the better choice here because we saw Dokula had one extremely good game when he came back. One insanely good game the first day he came back to split. And then net sucked the rest of the split.
He went like 9 weeks down the drain.
Yeah. So all around, like again, I think that Optic's ability to be able to function as an early game, like one of these aggressive early game supports through the jungle. I mean early game teams through the jungle and try and transition that into a like pressure around the map. Because again, when they get a lead, I think they're a pretty good team. It just rarely happens because top lane is usually
useless.
lagging behind.
top lane and bot lane are usually just heavy to carry.
They have a pretty solid understanding of when to secure dragons and that stuff because bot lane is pretty smart, even though they're not incredibly decent, and they usually have the upper hand of the jungle. So I'd say all around, this team can win a lot of games because there's not even a team in NA, in my opinion, that has better junglers than them. I don't think anybody does.
Meteos is probably single-handedly one of those smartest junglers in the game.
And then Dardoch is probably the best early game jungler in NA. It's just incredible.
It says that they're on the same team.
They're on the same team, and they only have one good player on them. So, like again, unless the meta shifts away from the early game jungler or anything like that, I don't see this team being 10th. They're gonna be in the 7th to 9th range or 7th to 8th range. Yeah, 7th to 8th range. I don't think they're gonna get 10th or 9th, but again, they're not gonna be in the playoffs because they don't have anybody in the top lane. Top lane is irrelevant at this point.
But the game is decided on jungle. That's the thing, though. Again, so a few good games that Meteos do pop off could be those extra games that they make them into playoffs.
I don't think they'll make it into playoffs. So all around, I think that's pretty much where they're going to land. If they do surprise and make it into playoffs, they're going to get 3-0'd. So they shouldn't make the playoffs, though.
If they make it to playoffs, NA has just gotten that much worse.
It really is the case.
But we got second place in MSI, so we're the best region in the world.
Okay.
I'm just saying. But EU's the best region in the world. I'm just saying. Okay. I'm just super saying. All right, now we're in playoffs. And we have the same playoff team, so we can talk about the same playoff team, I imagine, right?
I guess we can. Well, we both put CLG.
Okay, so last split, I was so close. I was ever so close to having the playoffs. They were one game away. And then CLG screw over me really hard by giving Darshan Nico. And I'm like, well, I think I just lost this prediction. I almost had all of my predictions correct. But CLG, I think this split have made the upgrade they needed. Now, there was a lot of things going on. I'm subscribed to every single YouTube channel about all these teams. So when they have a problem in certain videos, you can obviously see it. You obviously know they had internal issues with like subbing out players, and Stixay and Biofrost talked about in like interviews about players not wanting to be accountable. So that might breed a bad atmosphere. Darshan was single-handedly one of the worst tops in the league last split. The worst KDA. Worse laning stats. Overall, even in actual gameplay, you could see he was declining. And he had been declining for a very long time. I don't know if people are saying that he was already declining. He only declined this past year. He was already on a decline. What games are you watching? Please tell me that. He'd already been losing badly last year. And then I think someone said you were wrong about Darshan getting better.
He was getting better for a few games. And even I have to admit, I hated Darshan at the beginning of the year. I put him at 10th. I put him as the single worst top laner in the league.
He was literally just above Dolkla.
He improved those few games. He looked pretty decent on tanks.
Yeah.
Then they started swapping him to Nico on hit tops for some reason, and all these things, and we knew that it wasn't going to work. Darshan is not the carry for there he used to be. On top of the fact that he's only good on two champs.
He was horrible on Akali.
He was only good on Sion and Ornn. Those are the only two champions that I could see him good on. And
then you had a team like Wiggly. People had a lot of hype for Wiggly coming in. Failed on every aspect. That was just...
Well, again, he was supposed to be... he had 2 games in NA last season where he looked incredible. He looked like an incredibly up-and-coming jungler. And there was a few pros talking about how he was going to be the next big thing. And just based off of what we've seen, he's been an insanely big problem for this team. He's been in a meta that just suits the jungle so well. He's been functioning poorly. He has been making early aggressive plays, and if you look at the Camille game from game 2 of the season, he missed. How do you? He's missing these things.
It's a straight line. How do you miss that?
He missed it straight forward right in front of him, and on top of these are just mechanical misplays that he's been making that are simply straightforward things. He's been doing it throughout the entire season, and it's just as much as I'd like to see an up and coming jungler just make an impact on the scene, he's not been that.
I think that when you look at CLG, they've been criticized for keeping players too long. They really have been keeping players too long. I think Stixay should be replaced too. I think Biofrost not really showing me anything. I think but in the lighter aspect, the reason why they're in playoffs, I think it's somewhere else because I think Ruin coming over is an upgrade. Now I don't know too much about Ruin's English, but from what I saw at MSI 2019 when 1907 Fenerbahce made it into that tiebreaker game with Fongu Buffalo, I really do believe that Fenerbahce were the better team. I do believe that they honestly threw the game, and they should have been in the knockout round. But It didn't happen that way, but I do feel like Ruin was one of the best top laners in that whole play-in little stage they had for the minor leagues. It's weird, isn't it kind of weird? They're called minor leagues, but they have a bigger server. That's just a fun little trivia fact. Those minor leagues have bigger servers in North America. It is what it is. But overall, I think they do have a strong mid laner. Power Vivo, literally, he halfway through the split turned his Optic Misfits and Unicorns of Love form back on. He was like, because Origin Power Vivo was terrible. He turned back into the Optic 1v9 type mid laner, and I had been wanting to see that for a long time. He wasn't giving that for a bit, but now he finally turned it back, and he was like single-handedly one game from carrying them into playoffs. And I feel like now with having a stronger top laner, they're going to have a lot more better chances to win. It all depends on Wiggly synergy with Power Vivo, because like we said before, the patch is going in, it's like all based around mid and jungle synergy. They still are going to be a weaker mid jungle duo. It's just going to happen the way we saw it for 9 weeks straight last split, of them being like one of the worst weaker mid jungle duos. And the bot lane is just, what is that? Biofrost was overrated on TSM so bad that now on a weaker team, this is what he is.
Okay, now
I'm just throwing controversy.
Now I need to talk, because that is just incorrect.
People were saying he was like the best support. No, there were better supports that split anyway.
He was at the very least in the top 3.
He wasn't the absolute best. What people were saying.
He was arguably you could argue he was.
But none of his weaknesses got shown because he was on a starred power team.
I think that's just a cover up for saying that he couldn't have possibly just got worse, which I don't think he really has. But again,
he's definitely downgraded.
I don't know. Again, Biofrost looked pretty decent throughout the entire split. I think that he was one of the like on a better team, he would look good. I think he would look a lot better. A lot of the plays that he tried to make were not able to be seen because again, Stixie was playing horrible. I think the playmaking supports are definitely his thing. I don't like to see him on these laid back kind of things, but for the most part, he didn't play them. I think that a lot of the problems were that the laning mistakes they had made a pretty large impact on, like I would say, is the image that a lot of people get of him. But Biofrost still is one of the better supports in the league. I think he's in the top 5 still.
I think Stixie is just, he hasn't played good since that MSI.
Well, he's played, I mean, even the split after that, I still think, and the season, like, he's played fine. He was still a good support.
But if you want to be CLG and you want to be a top 3 team, Stixie is not your answer.
Well, I mean, I think he's drastically been, he definitely had good splits. I mean, he had splits after that were pretty good. For the most part, I think Stixie just showed this split that he's not in form enough to be able to compete with any of the ADCs because he wasn't on anybody's level.
So for CLG, we should probably talk about Weldon because I know that's gonna be a talking point at one point. So what did you think about Weldon on his first actual head coach?
Well, again, Weldon has never been, in my opinion, a head coach kind of player. I think that what he functioned as is a supplementary piece to a coaching system. He's never been in. Like again, I haven't seen him in the main
head coaching position.
I've never seen him in the head coaching position, but I've seen his stances on a few things in the previous seasons, which I didn't agree with.
Oh, so it was on TSM, G2.
Well, I know what teams he's been. I was saying I didn't like the stances. He talked in a few interviews telling about his stances, which he disagreed with some of the coaches that were obviously some of the best in the West. Like, again, I think he has a lot of good input into the game, and on top of the fact, he does help chemistry a lot. I think that one thing that teams you'll never see on teams that he actually is on is chemistry issues. Like the first season that TSM played in season 7? Mm-hmm. Season 7, yeah.
Was it season 6 or 7? No, season 6 TSM, right? Summer. That's when he first came in. Summer, season 6 TSM. Because that's when they switched up Biofrost to Yellow Star.
Is that when it happened?
Yeah, because in season 7 he went to G2.
You're right, because Yellow Star came over right after his Fnatic days.
Yeah, Weldon, after that split, went to G2.
Yeah. So, you look at TSM, that split, I think that was one of the best teams of all time from the West. Or, at the very least, the best team from NA we've ever produced.
Because I was like, I'll raise you Fnatic 2015.
Well, no, Fnatic 2015 is obviously better. I don't know. I think they're an arguable top, 10.
And after that, you got to throw in, G2 from this year, and then it becomes all crazy.
I'm not doing that until the end of this season. I want to see them function in more than just an aggressive
Here's a story for you guys. For you guys who don't know, we actually live in California. I talked to Weldon one-on-one for about a good 15 minutes after a CLG game. A very smart person, actually. I would love to talk to him again. When I talked to him, and then when I talked to Reaper after the Cloud9 game, I got 2 distinct different feels. One, Reaper is a guy that takes control. He's the more stern person. He's like, no, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna play the game, and you don't get any. And like you know, kind of like Phil Jackson compared to the Celtics coach from like 2009. Phil Jackson was like, no, this is where we're gonna play the game. The Celtics coach was like, okay, I'll let the players kind of give their input and kind of let the players kind of decide when they're on the stage how they're gonna play. You see how one works and one doesn't.
You're gonna compare the Celtics that made the finals?
No. Both of them made the finals in 2009 though.
Was that? Yeah, but that was a good team.
No, I know, but like you can kind of see the difference between that. One is taking control. One is more passive, giving wisdom. The person that's passive and giving wisdom should be your psychiatrist. The one that's more stern and more in control should be your coach.
Well, again, I don't think Weldon's bad at the coaching position, just the head coaching position itself.
Yeah. If it's head coach, you have to be stern on what you want.
I think he functions well as a coach therapist. Whatever he did the first season of TSM, I think he functions well as an analyst. I don't think he functions as a head coach. A big problem with CLG again, they playing around like the top lane. Darshan was the worst top laner in the league.
Do you think any of their academy subs were any decent, like Moon, Tuesday?
No one. Moon hasn't ever been good. Moon was good.
That one Flyquest split.
Moon was good in the academy. No, the challenger scene about season 5 is when I remember Moon being an incredibly good player in the. I don't know if that. Yeah, it was him. I remember Shrimp being good at that in that scene too. So for the most part, like I think that no one expected these players to be good. So you didn't really have any. They didn't expect anybody to be good. So they were planning on playing through these other players. Like, they were planning through playing this starting roster and getting somewhere. But I think it was obvious that Darshan needed to be removed. And Rune is just a gigantic upgrade, in my opinion. If you've seen Rune in the
Turkish League?
No, the TCL. If you've seen him in the TCL, you've seen him succeed in pretty much every aspect.
Like, even in some of those giant games where he lost, he looked pretty good in those.
Yeah, if you saw back when Broken Blade was there, it was a competition between the two top laners. Between him and Broken Blade throughout the entirety of their existence through that.
I think brewing enough will get him into playoffs.
I think that's a big upgrade, and I think on top of the fact they made an upgrade in their weakest position in a role, and in a way, I think that they needed a secondary carry, and they got that. So Power of Evil was a pretty decent support. Mid laner for these.
He played really well.
These past 2 seasons, I think he's drastically improved again, but this season and last season, I think I would like to see him like be a little less like off meta. I do think he functions a little too often off these off meta picks because Orianna's not going to always work. I think Orianna does work for the most part because she's just so
basic,
so simple.
kind of.
She does stuff that your team needs to do. She has good team fighting potential. She has the ability to shield people. Like again, she does these things. At the same time, she'd like you're gonna need your star carry to be able to play these like meta champions. Like if Galio ever gets shoved back into the mid lane again, like if any of these things happen, I don't think he functioned well in them. But I think that right now with the ability with the flexibility of the mid lane champion pool right now, he's functioning well because he's not limited in his champion pool. But when this thing gets shoved back into a stale mid lane and you're forced into these few picks, he's not going to function well again. I think that's a problem with his playstyle. So
I think that if you can almost make playoffs with Darshan and be one game away from playoffs, I think with an upgrade you can exactly get in playoffs.
Well, that's pretty obvious at this point. I think their bot lane problem I still think exists, but it's not going to be as detrimental to the team because they don't have another side lane failing. And the jungle again, I think they're not as aggressive. Like he's not as aggressive as he should be, but again, he's not as detrimental to the team as the aggressive Rush. Rush is aggressive and just not good at it. So at the very least, even though he's not aggressive, he's not feeding. So I'd like to see him take a more active part in the early game for this team so they can get these lanes who I think are going to be improving rolling. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for them. I mean, I hope CLG at one point become that top 3 org again, but until they get rid of they're always known for keeping washed up players. They're like Gen G for North America. Why are you still keeping QV? That still blows my mind. But whatever. I digress. Our 5th pick are different. I'll go first. My fifth place team is going to be the 100 Trash. So, you guys know that Nadeshot has this amazing clothing line, right? Joggers, these nice sweaters. That does nothing for League of Legends. See, the reason why I said that is because he's always been the person that'll do something that equivalates to something else. Like, he's really good, and that's how the team looks. That's why I'm kind of bringing all this back to. The team looks good, but then when you actually kind of break it down, it's like getting a new wife. You know, the honeymoon phase is really good, and then you're dating, and then everything's really really good. But when you actually get to know her, she looks, you know, you start to see her flaws, and you know it starts to look kind of bad. That's what 100 Thieves is. 100 Thieves is a girlfriend or a wife that you start off dating, and then at a certain point they just start downgrading to a certain point. What I mean by downgrading is that not only, I mean, they fixed certain things. So let's start with what they fixed. They fixed the jungle, and they didn't fix mid lane. I don't believe anybody. Soligo's not good. He sucks. He's just as bad as who he had probably worse maybe.
That is not. We just had this discussion. There's no way he's worse than Hui.
Just that specific split.
He was better than Hui. Yes.
That's sad. It's still not an upgrade.
Hui was like probably the worst mid laner.
Like he's just not a good mid laner. I don't know if people saw he had potential. No, he had no potential. He sucked too. The only good position they upgraded was Onda by putting him away for Amazing. I think Amazing, what he did on Schalke could potentially reflect on 100 Thieves. And now he can play. Now Amazing knows how to play the game. He knows what he wants. You have Someday who looked okay, you know, toward the back end of the split. Bang just really never looked good almost all split long. But I do feel like coming in with a rejuvenated mentality with Afro, they're going to be ready and hungry to actually make playoffs. 100 Thieves, in my opinion, they should not never be a 10th place team. I feel like they did make upgrades. One upgrade. They made one upgrade. They made a terrible side grade at a certain position. And I feel like that they have issues in certain places. And, you know, Afro said that they, you know, fix all their problems. I don't believe that for a second. Not until I see it on stage. And I don't. And if they go 0-4 again, their mental state, we don't want to see. We definitely don't know if that's going to be a possibility. So they still have Prawley, which you said is
probably not that good.
You said big and having a big impact on the game. Were you just trying to make puns all day? No. Okay. So what do you think about Prawley still being 100 Thieves' coach?
I mean, he obviously didn't have, again, the past 2 seasons, he's been one of the worst coaches in the entire league. Like, again, at last season, with their strongly being in topside, it took him forever to even notice Someday was the main carry of this team. Put him on Jackson one game, and they destroyed them, and then he had a few games where he put him on carries again, and then we saw him at Worlds, and he stopped putting them on carries again. Like, I think 100 Thieves, honestly, their biggest problem is Prawley's inability to know what this team's strengths are. Like, you putting Bang on Victor at the beginning of the season, how is that going to function well with one of the best mid laners, one of the best ADCs in the league, in my opinion. I think he plays Ezreal he was at one point one of the best Ezreals in the world. I don't understand his functioning behind when Ezreal is not picked or banned, you're going to pick Victor instead for a bot lane that doesn't know how to bot laner who doesn't know how to play mages. I think that he again always puts Someday on a tank. I think it's almost always the case. I think he's been forced into it a little less this season because again tanks weren't really in the meta that much. I think we had Scion and then I guess Urgot is kind of a tank but not really.
Do you think Amazing is going to be the way that he did on Schalke? He could get him further.
Like I want to talk about. I mean, I think Onda was not that horrible last split. I think that he was pretty decently passive for the most part. He really did improve towards the later half of the split, so I think he has potential. But he still was not able to take this team. He's not with him in the jungle spot. I don't think they're able to go to the next spot, the next level. I think Amazing was probably a better choice at this point because again he might not be mechanically gifted anymore. I don't think he is, but he does make good. Like again, has the ability to make aggressive plays around the map. I think he's a smart jungler. I think he does make a few mistakes here and there, but for the most part,
he's like a weaker version of Meteos.
I would say so, maybe.
That's kind of what he is.
For the most part, he has this veteran experience that he's going to be bringing into the jungle. I think that's going to benefit this team a lot.
He's going to be very, very vocal.
Yeah, because he did not have that. Like they really did function in the lack of all of like the inability to hear what this junglers think because he didn't talk a lot.
Yeah, because the thing is that like all they really ever heard from at this point up to this split now is just Aframu shot calling. How's that going to work with Amazing and Aframu working together?
I mean, it's not. I mean, I don't know who's going to be the main shot caller. I hope it's not Aframu because obviously he's not great at it. But I think that maybe it's just feeding one of them goes to the role of feeding information to the other, and then they function from that.
I feel like that'd be better.
Well, that's usually what happens. One main shot caller and the other person feeds information. prediction.
I just have 100 Thieves in playoffs because I just couldn't see a team like that, like amazing someday being an Afro. That's essentially a super team.
Yeah,
Essentially. Like
Again.
that's not 10th place material. I just can't look at. It's like looking at KT roster from like spring 20 from like the 2017 year. That is literally a super team.
Well, they got 10th place this split. I mean, again, the reason for it was because again they don't function like a lot of them underperformed. I think someday took a little bit toward the beginning half of the split. He didn't.
They all mentally just tanked.
But towards the later half of the split, someday performed really well. I think he was towards the top, maybe the best top laner in the league by the end of the split.
They said they're going to get a sports psychologist back again. They wanted to bring their sports psychiatrist back again.
It would be a good idea.
Because last split they said they didn't need it because they had veterans, and that still did not work.
Yeah, again, I think that someday, Aframu digressed a lot in these past few splits. Like, he's been playing really poorly.
Ooh, using big words. Digressed.
No. I don't even think that was the proper word, but my brain's not working too well. For the most part, I think that Aframu's inability to play in a way that was benefiting the team at this point, after being on like honestly an MVP caliber player not too long ago, is kind of crazy to me. I don't understand how somebody who is like known as one of the best supports in the league for so long could just randomly fall off a cliff and just consistently be at the bottom for so long.
This dude like cocked a motorcycle and just went down a cliff.
Like, you could blame it on like inability for them to function well.
Weaker teams, no macro.
No, it's not weaker team. You could blame his struggles again on like Bang and Aframu not synergizing, but that's obviously not why they did so poorly. I think the reason they did so poorly obviously was because again Aframu underperformed. There was when he went on characters that were engaged champions, they almost always lost. I think that when he played champions more so centralized around like Braum and stuff to kind of like supplement Bang's playstyle, I think they played a lot better. But again, I think that I don't even have them at 5th anymore. I actually put them up because again, I think that I think their roster on paper is a little better. I think they've probably made a change in probably the most important role in this season in with a vocal player on top of the fact a more aggressive player. It's going to help them function a lot better. On top of the fact they're going to have a lot more information being fed around the map. So I think this is really going to benefit this team, and I think this is, again, I don't have them at 5th. I have them at 4th, actually, so I think that actually will push them into that spot.
So your 5th place is?
My 5th place is going to be Flyquest. I think Flyquest is one of the smartest teams in the league. I think that Cop and St. Vicious, I know St. Vicious isn't technically on the roster, the coaching staff, but I do think he's helping still. I think with these two coaches, you have some of the most optimal drafts in the entire league. I think that they always play to their players' strengths. Every single time they play, they have a terrible roster. Like, they have Shrimp usually, they have something else. I don't know why you like Shrimp so much, but like, they always have good players everywhere in position to play with these. They always have bad players in every single position almost, and yet every single time at the beginning of the season, they always turn it on and somehow make this team at the very least playoff.
It's like a weaker version of Cloud9. Like, they have weaker players, but they work so well together that it makes up for all that weakness.
I mean, again, they have a lot of bad players that somehow turn around their seasons and just make it happen. Because again, their drafts are always benefiting the players. I think that is going to be something that keeps them in the playoff run. I don't think they could possibly do it. But I do think they're going to struggle in the second half of the split, and I do think they're going to fall below 100 Thieves in my opinion. Because, again, Flyquest doesn't have the players around them. Viper was a good start to a season, but nothing I would say that would push him to like the top tier top laner. I still think he's a middle of the pack top laner, even though he just came into the league. That's a pretty good start. Like, a lot of players can't really say that. I think that again,
their new coach. Who's their new head coach? The guy that's on stage though. I forgot his name.
I don't think he matters that much, honestly.
I think he drafted a lot to what his players' strengths were.
Well, I don't think he's doing the drafting, to be honest. I think that he's probably, again, like, I can't imagine a world where Compensate Vicious, who have been drafting for so long, it doesn't seem like their draft phase has been changed. So maybe he is drafting, but I think there's more instructions on what to draft for specific picks on his part. So maybe if I see him on his own, I'd give him a little more credit. But for right now, I think it's kind of impossible for him not to be drafting well on a team that's kind of like on a team with Comp and St. Vicious. I know, again, St. Vicious isn't technically there, but I do think he actually is still putting an input. Another big thing I think Flyquest is succeeding with is like they revived Pobelter's career after pretty
hard,
terrible last year. I think that
like, they had like the best jungler in the fourth place team.
Well, they didn't have the single best jungler, but they had one of the best junglers in the league, in my opinion. On a pretty weak team, I think they were not strong around the map for the most part. But again, I think that's jungle pathing is something that this team has probably figured out themselves. And Santorin he's been one of the most consistent players in the entire league for God, I don't even know how long. Ever since he got off TSM, he's been one of the best junglers in the league. I think that you can say a lot about his playstyle, but for the most part, Santorin has been a pretty integral part to this roster. His ability to play this early game aggressive playstyle has been making this team has been able to supplement this team past their weak early game and push them into the later half, where I think they shine a little bit more with their macro. But again, I think their problem is still going to be the weak laners that they have. I think that Pobelter has improved drastically, and he was one of the best laners in the league, but he still isn't a match for the top mid laners in the league. I think that what's his name? Viper has made a really good impact on the team. In the league, I think he's a really good start to the season, but he's still not at that level to play with the rest of them, like the rest of the elite top laners. And the bot lane's just not that strong. I think that Wild Turtle had one of his better seasons in a while, but he still wasn't one of the best ADCs. I still think he's kind of he still is middle of the pack. I still think that he's not made much of it. Like, he has not been a pretty strong part of any team's roster he's been on since TSM. I think that ever since then he's always been like the weaker half of the map for pretty much every team he's played.
What about on Immortals?
Well, he wasn't that strong. I don't understand. Did you think he was good on Immortals?
I thought he was better. Definitely better than he was on TSM.
Well, I mean, look at the players that were on his team. Do you think he was stronger than any of them?
He stood out on Immortals. He was like a third carry.
A third carry is the ADC. I think that's not incredibly good.
He just doesn't like Wild Turtle, though.
Well, Wild Turtle wasn't that good, though. I don't think you just don't like Wild Turtle. It's a cop-out, man. He was not that good last play.
Cop-out? I'm leaving. Yeah. Okay, so I'm on fourth, right? Well, we have 100 of these, and Flyquest just switched up, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I have Flyquest at fourth. I think they just made an upgrade in their weakest position. JJ was, man.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Wadid, huh? Yeah,
by far, JJ and Ole were the worst supports.
Yeah, I do think that's a pretty decent upgrade, but you're putting it in a lane that I think is still going to struggle, because Wild Turtle is still his inability to properly.
So you're saying that Yarnan is better than Wild Turtle?
I do think so. I think Yarnan actually knows how to position in comparison to Wild Turtle, whose positioning in teamfights is not that great. I think he plays a little bit too aggressive in comparison to what an ADC should.
I remember that game he ran it down top and got killed as Yasuo.
Yeah, but I know. He obviously can't play anything.
He can play Yasuo really well.
That's how my Yasuo's play, at least.
So. He's the Yasuo god of NA.
Okay, so
I think that when you look at Wadid, I think he is an upgrade over JJ.
I agree with that.
I still think he's not that good. I think people constantly baby this dude and keep telling him he's good. No, he's not. He's not as good as you're making him out to be. People constantly have a scapegoat for this guy instead of telling, hey, man, you're actually not as good as most people are telling you. It's just the honest truth. I didn't think he was that incredible on G2. I still think he was getting carried by Perks and Wonder. And I still think that on Rogue, it showed that he really wasn't, like, that great. But I think he was not that great by comparison of, like, EU having really good supports. So I think in North America he'll have a little bit more of an easier time. He's he's like a pole belter for, like, supports. Like, he's very good at certain points, but he's just really average. But Wild Turtle is also really average. So what's going to happen when they're going to be a better version of Apollo and Hakuo? That's pretty much what they're going to be.
Possibly.
And that's all they've upgraded, but how is Wadid and how is Wadid going to fit into this team? I feel like his personality will fit into this team a lot better. Like, their cohesion, Flyquest is all like Cloud9, they're like a family. They like to have fun. They like to joke around. Santorin played really well. Viper, I don't know. Viper had I think he got overrated by people. Like, he was good, but he wasn't the way people are talking about Viper like he played like licorice or something. Like, you're crazy. What kind of games are you watching? But because I saw some games where he got absolutely just dumpstered over. Like, you take a trash can and you just grab the trash can up and you throw it in the back. Yeah, like that. But I do think Flyquest always drafted the strengths. Pobelter played really well. They made an upgrade in their worst position enough, in my own personal opinion, to keep them at that 4th place spot. But I could see 100 Thieves stealing that spot. So that's what I'll say. I think they could drop down to 5th with the upgrades in the weaker teams, because I do think they were 4th place by default because every other team was just that much worse. Because remember, Flyquest usually, when the better teams start performing well, they start performing worse because they do have the weaker players at the end of the day. That's just how it is with them. So now we're into the top 3.
Well, no, I mean, again, the reason that I put 100 Thieves above Flyquest is because I think their upgrade in the roster was substantially better than the one that Flyquest made in Wadid. I think Wadid is still an upgrade, but I don't think he's that drastically an upgrade. Or so as I think, what's his name?
Or Onda for Amazing?
Yeah, I think Amazing is going to be a drastic upgrade for this team, and it's exactly what they needed, was an early game aggressive jungler, and I think they're going to get it in this. It's going to... Their playstyle was just too slow-paced, and I think that didn't function in this meta. And I think they're going to look a lot better with a faster-paced jungler, because that's just what's going to be looking better in the situation. Well, again, at the end of the day, that's what's going to be looking better with the state of the jungle. But again, our top 3 are substantially different. I think I don't even know who's going to go first in this one.
This is basically what I like to call rock paper scissors, because it really doesn't matter per se.
I think all of them are pretty much, you could switch them out. I think that for the most part, all of them could compete with the rest. I mean, all 3 of them.
Because last split, Cloud9 2-0 TSM, but then lost 2-0 to Liquid. TSM 2-0's Liquid, and then it's just like rock paper scissors. Like these are now the top 3 teams. I mean, TSM and Cloud9 have always been here. They're all another third team will get shuffled in at one point. Maybe it's not Liquid in a couple years.
Maybe it's not TSM and Cloud9 at one point, because it's not always going to happen.
It's not always happen, but hey, it's happened so much. I mean, until has that ever really changed for a while? That hasn't really.
TSM didn't go to Worlds last year, so yes.
It depends. I mean, I wouldn't call 100 Thieves that way last year. I think they got there by, oh gosh, but that's not the point. I think Cloud9 for me is a little bit higher because, the TSM jungle situation. I feel like during certain weeks they're gonna try it out and they're gonna lose games based off of that. More games than they should if they were just gonna start with one jungler all the way through. And I think that TSM is really subjectable to losing to random teams that they really shouldn't be losing to. Because Cloud9 last split, they only lost to CLG once, Echo Fox, and Team Liquid twice. That means they literally 2-0'd everybody else. So did Liquid. Liquid pretty much 2-0'd everybody else except for Echo Fox and TSM. So, and that means TSM lost more games to the other teams than Cloud9 and TL did. That's just what it was. Because I feel like the way TSM plays, they draft very disrespectfully against those lower teams, and then they lose those lower teams, and then they're like, why did we lose to Echo Fox? Probably because you drafted 4 losing lanes against weaker players. So I believe that they'll lose based off their own self, not more like their players are weaker. Plus, I think that some games when you start Grig is not going to be as good as starting Acadian. That's why I have TSM lower than Cloud9, because I feel like them trying out that jungle situation is going to be very detrimental at certain points in certain weeks when you need to get those wins to have a higher standing.
All right.
I'm not saying that they're immediately better. I'm just saying that's just what I was thinking.
And fair enough, but again, I have Cloud9 at number 3. I think that by the end of the split, it was pretty obvious who the top 2 were. I think that Cloud9 just did make an impact in the league, and I think they took TSM to 5 games, but for the most part, I think that the top 2, on a good day, TSM is the substantially better team than Cloud9. But again, I think TSM does have a bunch of bad days, so I think that's what they're going to have to struggle with. Like, they do actually play a lot worse against the lower tier teams, but for the most part, I think that Cloud9 does on paper, or not even just that, roster-wise, they do have the worst roster out of the top 3. I think that's just the case. Their playstyle is the second fastest paced, so I do think they have that edge over Team Liquid. But again, at the end of the day, I think that they're not good enough at the fast-paced playstyle to be able to counteract Team Liquid, and they're not good enough player-wise to be able to beat TSM in the early game, because again, TSM just has the better players. So I think that's going to be something they struggle with. I do think that Sneaky has had one of the best seasons in a long time, honestly. Zazel's a pretty good.
He was like the third best support last split behind like Smoothie and Core JJ. I thought that was pretty good.
I don't know if third best.
I would say seconds on some days too, because Smoothie on some days looked.
Third,
I would say Smooth. The reason why I say Zazel looked better throughout the split was because he looked better throughout the split. Smoothie,
he was consistent, but again, Zazel is not a standout player. I think he's a pretty decent support at the end of the day. Nothing incredible. but he's not going to get you wins himself. But he is a supplementary piece that will function well with.
I think Cloud9 single-handedly has the best coaching staff of the top 3.
Well, that's just without a doubt. I think that they do have the best. They always make the best choices, and I think that might be a make or break thing for them. Maybe
they had rain over the split coming in.
Yeah, maybe that might be the that thing that shoves them towards the top 2. But again, at the end, like I don't think they have the players to do it. Even with the coaching staff, you have to be good enough to pull these things off. And even with Jensen last year, with good picks, they still couldn't beat those teams because they just didn't function well enough with the players.
Because I want to point this out when they're at the top 3. This is regular season standings. This is not playoffs.
Again, I don't think that. I still think this is going to be the playoff standings too.
I think Cloud9 could get to the finals this split though. Because they're one game away
they
from.
They won one game, to be fair, but again, I think that was an underperformance in the first 2 games off TSM.
I think that was an underperformance on Cloud9 too from not finishing the series.
Well, I mean, again, TSM. Well, I don't know. I think that TSM got severely outplayed them those next 2 games. Because Bjergsen manhandled Niski.
Yeah, you have to factor in.
Straight up beat him down.
Because like Cloud9 and TSM have the 2 best top laners in the league, in Licorice and Broken Blade. Now, the reason why I say Licorice is a little bit better is because you have to factor in TSM gave Broken Blade the counterpick almost every single time.
Well, that's not just what it is. Again, Broken Blade is pretty much always going to be that piece that shoves them to a win.
Yeah.
Licorice is more so he's an extremely good top laner, always winning. I'm always doing well in lane, but never as impactful in terms of lead as Broken Blade.
But he is the only impactful because he gets that counter pick.
He doesn't always get counter pick. Again, he had a lot of picks where I would say if you look at the Victor versus Aatrox, he did well in that, and that's not a good lane for him. He's just a lot better than a lot of the people give him credit for. Well, everybody gives him credit.
But Team Liquid, this is the thing though. Team Liquid has the weakest jungler than the other guys, which is really weird because Smithy.
Weakest? I mean, are you really going to put Svenskeren over Smithy?
I feel like Svenskeren played better than Acadian in their series.
Oh, that was a really underperformance by Acadian though. I think that was probably his worst series.
I believe on good days Svenskeren can go even with Smithy or better than him too.
Well, I mean that's fair enough, but again, at the end of the day, he's so inconsistent that I don't think I can give him that much credit.
But then you have now Team Liquid comes back from MSI, Impact now buffed up from MSI, or was that a one-time thing from him?
I mean, again, Impact looked a lot better on the international stage, but again, that's based off the fact that no one cared enough about his impact on the game to really kind of focus him. No one cared enough to gank his lane. No one cared about even paying any attention. They left him on an island. Both teams did.
They gave him the overpowered Nico pick every single time.
And then what he did with the lead was pretty minimal. He never really pushed his lead that hard. Again, I think he did really well in the IG series. I think he was the second best player in that series. Mm-hmm. But there just wasn't that much he did, which is why they didn't have to focus him.
Now, here's the thing, is that TL do have the best bot lane. TL have double lift and core JJ. That's
I think they do have the best bot lane. That's been the case throughout the entire season, though. And I think that might be something that they will be able to exploit through most of the teams. But, again, none of the bot lanes we're talking about are pushovers, so I don't think they're going to take over the game against either of these top 2 teams.
It's just that the top 3 teams have best in certain positions, like Cloud9 best coaching staff, TSM best mid, best top potentially, Team Liquid best bot lane, best duo synergy, stuff like that. But I do think Jensen and Xmithy are worse at mid and jungle 2v2 than the other guys are.
I agree with that. I think that is a big problem what they're going to have.
We saw at MSI when Caps and Yanko started manhandling them. They mentally gave up. You saw their faces. They were like, "Okay, we lost. Game's over." They all mentally gave up.
The game isn't centralized around a mid-jungle duo, though. That's the good thing about this, is that you don't need to have a mid-jungle duo. You can focus another lane instead.
It's just like, you can exploit Team Liquid. You can. You just do it through, I said last split, mid and top. Now you can potentially do it through mid.
I think the best way to beat Team Liquid is something that we saw in the G2 series, which is you always need to go through bot. I think that bot lane is always going to be the case. You always want to focus around the bot lane and see how that impacts the game. Because, again, Team Liquid's only succeeding lane, for the most part, is going to be this bot lane. If you take them behind, if you make them go behind, I don't think they're going to be able to compete with the rest of these teams. Because, again, I think that's their inability to stop the ganks happening if the jungler just keeps coming down. Xmithy's not able to do anything because he's never on the right side of the map, so...
He's not even really technically on the same page as his players sometimes.
Yeah, so if you can take out this bot lane on Team Liquid, you can beat them. But again, Core JJ is extremely good, so it might be a little hard to do unless you're G2.
So, and I think that if like could Bjergsen do the same thing that Caps did to Team Liquid? Because if Bjergsen can hold his own against those two, it's pretty much a wrap too.
Hold his own against two.
Like the way Caps was able to just hold off like Smithy and Jensen in that final series.
I think Bjergsen, honestly, in my opinion, I would have liked to see him on the international stage because I think he'd do a lot better against Caps than Jensen did. I think
Jensen just has a mental block against Caps.
Jensen did not look good against Caps. And I think,
both times. This is the second time we've seen it.
Look at he must have one against Bjergsen. He does terrible against him too.
He's already overcome Bjergsen.
Has he really? In
2018 summer, and then now this split he overcame him.
He was horrible this split. What?
No, like this split he overcame him.
Wait, Bjergsen was literally the best mid laner by far.
I know, but like he overcame him on his last year on Cloud9.
He literally had one better split, and then the rest of them have been Bjergsen. Even this split, which
I think
is the
people
most recent.
Sometimes they don't give the right credit to Jensen because there's a lot of times
Jensen has had some good splits, but Bjergsen was obviously in the Team Liquid series. There was a big discrepancy in between the mid lane.
I think that had to do with draft.
No, that was
because in the LeBlanc game he took over the game. He did really well.
Well, he didn't take over the game more so. I think more so again he had a few kills around the map that got him going. But again, he literally there was a big discrepancy in that series, and it wasn't counterpicked.
But we know he's better than that though.
He's not better than Bjergsen. I just think that's just not the case. I don't think he's on the same
level. If Bjergsen's like a 10, then Jensen's like at least a 9.
I don't know.
Because they've been the best mids in NA since Jensen's came in.
I would say Jensen's an 8, and there's just not a 9 in the league.
Niski's getting there.
Niski is a 7, maybe.
People haven't given Niski enough credit. He played pretty well.
But again, if you look at against Jensen, against Bjergsen, he's just not able to compete with them.
But we knew that going in, though.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. I think that we didn't expect it from him, but again, that still has to be stated that he's not as good. Just because we expected it doesn't mean we don't put that into consideration. That he's just not as good as them.
So I think the thing that makes or breaks them is the patch coaching staff, because all the players can handle each other. Like Sneaky and Zeyzal are fine into the other bot lanes.
I think we've pretty much talked about all 3 teams, right? Well, we're not done, but
like the top. I think the position we didn't really focus on was top lane. I think like Licorice and Broken Blade, I think will still steamroll Impact.
If he plays the way he did at MSI, I still think he's probably the worst out of these 3. But the difference is a lot less impactful. And Licorice isn't going to beat him in lane anymore.
You don't think he will?
Licorice has never been lane dominant, so centralized. I think he's good at lane, but it's not just his main
It's
focus.
just like whenever he faces Impact, it's a one-sided stomp usually.
What is, again, but the way he played at MSI is so much different than what he played at during the season.
Essentially, that's pretty much it. It's like when you break the top 3.
Well, we didn't really say what our top 3 are.
Oh, my top 3. I said as before: TSM 3rd, Cloud9 2nd, TL 1st.
I put TSM. Oh no, I put Cloud9 3rd, Team Liquid 2nd, and TSM 1st.
The reason why we had an argument before we started the video was that I told him why would Team Liquid be below TSM when Team Liquid came back from facing international competition. TSM's been sitting in front of their monitors for the next 2 months.
I mean, again, did they learn anything in that G2 series?
Let's hopefully. Hopefully.
Again, even their group stage was not very impressive. I think they had one good split. One good series against a struggling IG who had an underperformance, and on top of the fact they never played around their drafts. I'm not going to give them that much credit. I don't think that was a great MSI from them. I think that they beat IG great.
They literally got into group stage because Flash Wolves just literally downgraded all their positions.
But again, I think that first off, IG drafted a 1-3-1 comp and constantly tried to force team fights. That's not going to win you games. That's not going to win you the series.
Also, IG, why? Every time someone gets attacked on IG, it's the same style they do. Everyone just rushes in and tries to save them.
But again, I think that Team Liquid...
my argument was they came back from facing better competition. TSM's been facing no one except for scrims from G2, SKT, or whatever.
I mean, again, you can say whatever you want.
That's the thing.
There's not a big discrepancy. Again, I don't think they're gonna how often do you see MSI teams just come back and just destroy the team? Like again,
any team but North America.
Well, no, not always. I mean, again, there's been
EDG came back. They still won first place. SKT.
EDG after their 2015 looked substantially worse. That was just the truth. They looked so much worse after that.
SKT when they came back.
SKT didn't win that. So they didn't win.
After they lost at MSI, they came back and won a split. So MSI did improve them.
But they didn't improve from MSI. They were drastically improving throughout the year, though.
Yeah.
I think that MSI is a little overrated in terms of, it is slight international, so, what's it called? But it's not going to make your team 10 times better. It's just going to give you some experience. And I think that's something Team Liquid didn't take into consideration because, first of all, their playstyle didn't change. They still are bot centralized team, and if they don't get the bot going, they lose. And on top of the fact, Jensen played substantially worse. I think that was another thing that I did. So all around, maybe Impact improved. But for the most part, they did actually look like a worse team in the tournament than they did during the regular season.
I think that if you're VOD reviewing as TSM and Cloud9, you can literally look at every single thing that the international teams did to exploit Team Liquid and just do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem is actually doing it is a thing. Because you can see what the problems are. You just got to do them.
Well, yeah, but all around, what was that?
Oh, that was just like a zinger type of thing.
That wasn't a zinger at all. You just made a statement.
Your finger didn't show.
I don't care anymore.
Gosh.
So all around, I think that's pretty much it. I think the top three, if you have anybody else but these in the top three, you're kind of stupid.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's it. There's literally, like, maybe 100 Thieves somehow makes it a drastic change and makes it in, but
if that happens,
if you can predict this...
If you can predict 100 Thieves' top 2, I will literally give you my girlfriend.
No, I mean, no, because if it does happen, you don't have a girlfriend to give.
Oh, yeah, you're right. True.
Again, these top 3 teams, I think, without a doubt, are just head and shoulders above the rest of the league. But at the end of the day, I think that the top 3 are tossed up between any 3 of these teams. I think could take the title.
Yeah, so. I do believe, as a Cloud9 fan, they have a chance to win the split. Again, I think it'll be TSM and C9 this split in the finals, because I do believe at this point, with everybody improving, they can take down Team Liquid.
I think that we shouldn't put fan bias in.
I'm not putting fan bias in there. I'm just saying.
Analytical kind of thing.
Because do you think Team Liquid are going to do 4 peats this split?
I'm just saying right now that Team Liquid has Core JJ and
Cloud9 has Bjergsen?
Yeah, and Cloud9 has no one on that.
Cloud9 has Reaper.
Yeah, because that's literally him. I mean, Licorice is decent, but
they have Licorice.
He's not as good as them. He's not as good as Bjergsen and Core JJ. That's just not the case. So,
or TSM have Broken Brain.
TSM's. I mean, again, Broken Blade is is also not on that level.
So it's like a toss between the top teams. So I'll see you guys. We'll see you guys later. JTH.
No, don't say signing out. Don't.